The American pigeon, brave and bright, awaits the signal for another flight to carry a message for the commander's sight. Winged warriors, pigeon patrols delivering vital communication. Carrier pigeons served as an invaluable mode of communication during World War I and World War II by the Allied forces. These military messengers carried vital information identifying military operations, troop locations, and combat assistance needs. The use of these pigeon patrols when other communication sources failed resulted in securing Allied victories and the saving of Allied lives. Wars not new to pigeons. The Punic Wars, the Battle of Waterloo, and the Siege of Paris all used pigeons for messaging. The Allied forces would continue this tradition by enlisting pigeons to fight the Central Powers in World War I and the Axis powers in World War II. Pigeons are believed to possess 7 senses, including compass sense and map sense. This homing instinct allows them to orientate using the sun and the Earth's magnetic field while also using visual clues and frequencies. Military trainers had to overcome the bird's innate one-home instinct when they were used on the fluid battlefields of World War I and World War II. Pigeons excelled at delivering urgent messages, detailed intelligence, maps, and invasion plans. Many times, pigeons were the only communication mode in rugged terrain or near enemy lines. It was as simple as writing on rice paper, placing it in a capsule, and fastening it to a pigeon's leg or back. Even cameras could be attached. These messengers were so strategic that German armies banned them from occupied countries, even killing pigeons and their owners when found. World War I pigeons could fly around 200 miles per flight, with World War II birds easily doubling that. They could reach speeds of 60 miles per hour. British officers noted that pigeon messages were unique because the intelligence was so fresh one could almost smell it, having it in their hands within minutes or hours, as opposed to waiting months for other methods. In World War I, pigeons were used effectively when sending frontline information to rear commanders. Due to heavy fighting at the front, regular communication channels were unreliable.
The pigeon is the one that can get the message through when all technologies failed.
Pigeons were also deployed in tanks. They were preferred over radios for ease of coordination between units. Additionally, pigeons were used on air missions to report battlefield positions as they were launched mid-air for quick updates back to ground commanders. One of the biggest obstacles that pigeons had to overcome in World War I was being respected. Britain initially called pigeons outmoded, but as the U.S. National Archives points out, communication was key in a conflict the size of World War I. The accuracy of pigeons was soon viewed as superior to the advancing technology of the telephone and telegraph.
In both World War I and World War II, conventional means of communication through the telephone or telegraph were often severed by the enemy.
Remarkably, low-technology pigeons were viewed as the most reliable type of war communication. Heroic American birds from World War I include President Wilson, who was part of Colonel George Patton's tank battalion, Peerless Pilot, who delivered 196 messages from sea, and Cher Ami. Cher Ami was one of 600 World War I American birds. She was embedded with what became known as the Lost Battalion on the Western Front in France. When runners could no longer get through, Cher Ami was released as a last resort. Flying with life-threatening injuries and her leg dangling by a tendon, Cher Ami stopped the friendly fire attack, saving 194 lives. At the end of World War I, the British Army Communications Chief declared, if it became necessary to immediately discard every method of communications used on the front except one, I should unhesitatingly choose the pigeons. At World War I's conclusion, 320,000 pigeons were used in the Allied victory, with an impressive 96% successful transmission rate, better than any other method. A 1942 journal article entitled Crisis Communication stated, "Communication is the vital bloodstream which makes all-out war possible." This was recognized in World War II as pigeons continued their important role in communications.
And certainly at the start of World War II, people said, why do we need these pigeons? They're just old-fashioned. They're from World War I, we don't need them. And in the end, they proved quite useful.
U.S. Signal Company officer J.B. Bolts offered this praise. Pigeons have saved thousands of lives in battle by getting through despite freezing cold, blistering heat, and storms of withering shell fire. They get through many times where all other types of communications have failed. World War II saw improvements to mobile lofts, two-way pigeon flying, and even an Owl Express for nighttime pigeon flying. Additionally, watertight pigeon baskets were used on planes and ships for emergency messages. U.S. Army Pigeoneer Gordon Hayes stated, "Many bomber crews owed their lives to our comrade pigeons." Pigeons solved a critical World War II communications issue. It took months for human spies to cross borders, but mere days for pigeons to return. Thus, pigeons were dropped behind enemy lines to recruit civilians to gather intelligence. Spy mission Operation Columba soon received Message 37 back from Belgium. It translated to 14 pages of microscopically written information and was seen by Winston Churchill himself. Spy pigeons showed that there was a spirit of resistance against the enemy and that civilians were willing to risk their lives to respond. In the North African battlefield campaign, the use of pigeons could cut up to 6 hours off the time that it would have taken surface communications to reach headquarters.
On the Italian front, pigeons could be wireless times by an hour. American Pigeon Hank delivered an urgent message that foiled the capture of General George Patton. Furthermore, American Pigeon G.I. Joe saved 100 Allied soldiers from the friendly fire when he arrived just in time to abort an air attack on their new position. British Pigeon William of Orange saved over 2,000 troops, the largest pigeon rescue in World War II. He brought an urgent request for reinforcements at the Battle of Arnhem, flying for 260 miles in just 4 hours. British Pigeon Winky managed to save her downed aircraft, even arriving without her written message. The Royal Air Force used her arrival time and the oil on her body to find the crew's location.
Through driving rain and bullets, the British Pigeon, Duke of Normandy, landed with Allied paratroopers days before D-Day. All radio communications had failed, and he was the only communication available back to command. Without him, Allied troops were prepared to launch a backup artillery attack that would have caused significant Allied deaths. British Pigeon Gustav and Irish Pigeon Paddy brought vital communications about D-Day success back to Allied commanders. Due to radio silence because of German monitoring, these winged telegraphs were pivotal in this crucial battle. At World War II's end, the Allied victory used over 250,000 pigeons, with an impressive successful transmission rate of 95%. As post-war communications evolved, pigeons were retired from service. However, a report suggests that the Chinese army may actually be using pigeons again.
So you'd think in the modern digital era, people would have got rid of carrier pigeons and they would no longer need them. But there was a report recently that China and its military had trained something like 10,000 carrier pigeons to potentially be able to communicate between two different military bases.
Pigeons used for war communications generated political, economic, military, and global impacts. Above all, the Allied outcomes of both wars may have been incredibly different without pigeons. The political impacts of a world without democracy would be devastatingly far-reaching. The economic impact of using pigeons was their low-cost addition to military units. They proved their worth as they gathered intelligence and located missing planes and ships. Important military impacts include how widely pigeons were used in every branch of service and how high-ranking war officials received their messages. Governments even issued penalties for anyone killing pigeons. Furthermore, the Dickon Medal, the highest award given for animal valor, was awarded to 32 war pigeons.
The military continues to experiment with pigeons. The Coast Guard uses them to help find shipwrecks, and the U.S. Navy is investigating using them to carry data devices that would extend remote communication ranges. The lasting global impact is that these winged warriors saved countless Allied lives. The Royal Air Force deemed that one of every 7 World War I crewmen downed at sea owed their life to a pigeon. Their valiant efforts in World War I and World War II cannot be heralded enough. A British memorial eloquently portrays the key to communication that these winged warriors vitally provided. For a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which hath wings shall tell the matter.